It's going. This is the 8-9 combo. I'm Brett McKay, and it's a hearty weekly welcome to new Bulls fan Harry Jones. Hello, mate. How you doing?
How's it, Brett? Are you referring to Cameron Honeycomb, the second Honeycombing of Pierre Spies?
Yes.
He is a good lad. No, that was good. But, 8-9s. Let's just talk about them really quickly. Just go through this. So, Tutu Christie, Aldrit, Karabarwo, Honeycomb, Papier. We have Dempsey Horn. We have Satiti Ratima. We have Tatafu, Lusu. These 8-9s kind of dominated the weekend. If you look at all the really high-pressure matches, the teams that could link their pack to their backs, the teams that could control some of the action, and just some superlative performances by number 8s, if I could be so partial.
No, you could be completely bloody impartial, mate, and I would agree with you. And from a Super Rugby sense, you could even say that, Yosei Perinara, Kale Lonigan probably weren't as connected as those other teams you mentioned. So it all makes sense.
And have you seen a better, just a cameo by a young guy like Dan Satiti? I know he's got the pedigree and all
that.
But that
fantastic,
was ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it was very, very good, and would seem to have All Black Bolter written all over him at the moment, wouldn't he? So we will see how that all plays out. We are up to episode 19 of the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast, all thanks to the Sports Social Podcast Network, and available across all the pod platforms. So please do like, follow, subscribe, rate, review, share, and all that business as well. So let's rip it out down the short side for another week, mate. Cheers and jeers to kick things off. Hit me, mate. What have you got? Cheers.
For cheers, I did flirt with Tutu and Satiti, but I came back to Honeycomb. Cameron Honeycomb is a young guy, as Jake White will keep telling you. It's drink every time he says 21 years old.
The reality is only 21. He's a young guy.
He's just 21, eh? Imagine how good he's going to be when he's 25. But, 10 carries for 80 meters, hard. I'm talking 8 defenders beaten. And let's just think about the guys he's beating, right? He's actually beating Kalen Doris, Josh
Island Internationals.
Serious guys. He cleaned Furlong off of a ruck head-to-head. I think he had three clean breaks, 2 turnovers, 1, 80 minutes, 2 offloads, 18 tackles, and not 1 miss. I literally have gone through. I've kind of used that same system I've done with some of the locks and tried to do it to a loose forward. It's different because of the set piece play, but it's phenomenal. His work rate compares with any of the greats out there. So it's going to be fun to see if Rossi takes him on for these tests coming up and gives the kid a chance.
Yeah, we'll see. And the Bulls were excellent in beating Leinster in the URC semi on the weekend. We will come back to the URC finals a little later. But some jeers for you, mate. And I'm throwing it to the white flag wavers out there among Australian rugby fans who kind of found voice in the last few days. It's always been a bit of an undercurrent of dissent, I think, towards Super Rugby, but it really came to the surface at about halftime on Friday night with the Brumbies trailing 27-3 in Auckland. And it really took hold. And the jeers is that the crux of the argument is basically, this is too hard, we should quit. And it's like, if that is your solution, to throw the toys out, essentially, I don't know. I worry about the state of the game sometimes in Australia. I really do.
Was it that guy, Jack Quigley, the wanker?
No.
I think Quigley's become the new term for wanker.
I'm not going to. It wasn't just one particular person. There was,
You're saying it was a groundswell of like.
There was a groundswell. There was a real groundswell. Yeah, real groundswell. Headlines even. It just surprised me, and I didn't like it much.
Counterfactually, the number of wins that Australian teams had over New Zealand teams was 10, I think,
more
this season.
10, yeah,
right,
absolutely,
compared to 2 and 1. So
yeah, in recent years, exactly. The Reds were 3 from might have been 3 from 6 in the end. The Brumbies were 4 from 7. That's decent records. Anyway, we've got another returning guest this week who we're really excited to reconnect with. It's another 8-9 debut for someone we love watching play and who we've caught in a small window before things get very busy for him again. He joins us right after this. Joins us right now, in fact. There he is. The Australian involvement in Super Rugby Pacific has come to an end a week early again, which means all attention is now devoted to amateur Wallabies selections. But for the players, this is the window to start making contractual moves for next season, to get some things done around the house, or in the case of this week's guest, to move house completely. And it's great to catch him once again and hand out an 8-9 combo debut to Andrew Kellaway. Hello, mate. Great to see you again.
Girls.
G'day, guys. How are you? Thanks for having me.
No, very well, very well. We've got our fingers crossed for the technology this time. Didn't go so well last time, did it? You have just moved house. You're surrounded by boxes.
Yeah.
How's it all going so far?
Yeah, no, it's been appropriately smooth. I think there's always supposed to be a couple of bumps in the road, but I've got the plumber in the bathroom at the moment fixing something up. So it look, it's been smooth enough. Smooth enough
as far as moves go.
Yeah.
Now, Harry, you have to kill something off now that we've got Andrew Kellaway here as well.
Yeah, Kels, I've always introduced you and billed you as the Bachelor. I have no idea why. It just was fun, and Sarah and I kind of enjoyed it too. I just kind of enjoyed the idea of you playing rugby purely as a means to feed your Instagram. So you've actually
fair enough.
You've actually grown up from being the Bachelor to the betrothed, and now I believe that you're the besettled. You settled down. I have actually learned this, and maybe it's true for you. When you have more responsibilities and more people depending on you, you actually get more efficient. Have you actually found that having family, wife, kid, has it actually made you more serious and more intense about training and making sure everything's on time when you're single and kind of sleeping late? Who knows, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think the one thing I've noticed is it's made me more aware about what I need versus what I want. So do I need to go and do all these extras, or do I need to go and sit in the spa for 35 minutes after training? So it's it's certainly tightened the gap there in terms of what I do.
Do I need this ice bath?
Yeah, you always need those, but it's it's certainly tightened the windows either side of training. So it's a struggle to get the morning coffee in at the moment, but we'll get there.
Yeah, no doubt. We've been lucky enough, mate, this year to have really good conversation with Lucan Salakai Loto, with Kevin Foote, and the weeks leading into the decision about the Rebels that's now behind us was really great to get that insight, and still getting comments, nearly a month later, on our chat with Kevin Foote, which is our most listened to episode for the 8-9. Talk to us now about life post Rebels. The decision's been made. Everyone's now got to get on with their lives. So how are you guys going now post decision?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one. Like, I think that what should we call it? That episode for us dragged on for a really long period of time there. Yeah. So when we finally got the answer, it was almost like a blessing in disguise. You're kind of like, oh, thank God we have an answer now, I think. And that sounds like a funny thing to say because no one was happy about it. But at the same time, you go, closure is probably the word. So, mate, to be frank, I don't think it's sunk in for a lot of guys. We had we found out on the Thursday, flew to Wellington, played, lost, celebrated, and then, guys are up and out of Melbourne quickly because, leases end and guys have got to sort other stuff out and all sorts of things came into that. So to tell you the truth, I don't know if it's like it hasn't sunk in for me, and a couple of guys I've spoken to are sort of sitting there going, shit, is it really over? Like maybe, and that sort of stuff. So I think, look, probably in the coming sort of fortnight, I think once the Wallaby stuff gets underway and start to see other teams going back to training, you'll probably, I think it'll become pretty real then.
It's really different from a normal season ending, almost like school. Yeah. It's almost like you're graduating from some kind of college or school, right?
Seriously though, it is. You go, I sort of, as you said, I am moving. So I drove up from Melbourne on Wednesday. And I'm driving off with this stuff in the car, and it's like, right, like onto the next thing, kind of, a little bit like going from primary school to high school or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like I'll never see this again potentially. So it's, I said to my wife, actually, it's really sad. The three, arguably, or maybe not arguably, probably the three biggest achievements of my life, happened in Melbourne. So I became a father and a husband and a Wallaby, all in Melbourne. Yeah. So, once the dust has sort of settled on this, I think it'll be a pretty sad couple of days.
Will it actually be harder for you guys who do, and fingers crossed, and we're pretty confident that you will be one of them, added to the Wallaby squad later this week? You'll get on with that job. So, you're processing life post Rebels is probably going to get put off for another few months yet.
Yeah, well, look, I think as you do with those sorts of things, if you're lucky enough to get picked, it's like shit, one foot in front of the other here. I'm back into another campaign. So you're right. Like you won't, for those guys who are lucky enough to be picked, I don't think there'll be, that we'll call it a mourning period. Why not? It pretty much is. So, the mourning period probably won't happen till right at the back end of the year, which will be, it'll be tough because all the guys now have each other to discuss that with and to share that with. And, I'm sure those guys who are, again, lucky enough to be picked in the Wallaby squad will have to lean on each other there.
Yeah. Are you staying connected as a group as you start going your separate ways?
Yeah, a little bit. I think this period right after the season is always pretty quiet. Like everyone's pretty keen to go and, invest some time in the areas they probably haven't for the last couple of months. So, this sort of 1 or 2 weeks is always pretty quiet, and then I'm sure it'll heat up again. So, yeah.
Yeah.
On the actual rugby side, Kels, you had kind of a strong campaign that looked to me like you were running downhill more. You were actually committing to 2 or more tacklers more. I think 52% of your carries ended up committing 2 or more tacklers. You made the gain line 75%, which is the best in all the outside backs in the comp. And you had 82 carries into contact out of 109. So it was kind of a different role. And you just looked a little bit more dynamic in the collisions. You're hitting rucks. I hit like 55 attacking rucks. I don't know what that was all about. Did you consciously bring in? You might have been. I think if you touch the rock and you just stand there and you lean on it, I think it's called a 10.
That counts. Yeah, it's like a rugby league hooker.
Yeah.
Right?
But did you consciously come in trying to beef up the play a little bit and be a little more physical across the? I know Joe Schmidt likes that kind of back. Or was that just the way that it kind of rolled out this year?
Probably a bit of both. I think, like, it's always one of those ones you're kind of trying to adjust your game on the run to what the team needs. So, our forwards copped a massive spray at the start of the year from everywhere about not being physical enough. And, part of that is someone's got to pick up the slack. So I know Filippo, fantastic job as well. Myself, Davey Valuai, all those guys, Juicy when he came in. Yeah. Even Carter probably was carrying the ball a bit more. So I think we probably felt like, if these guys are having a tough night in the office, then it's up to us to kind of try and shift the point and get the team going forward in another way. So, yeah, look, that was probably my way of trying to do that. I said to a couple of boys into the year, I was copping a heap of flack for not passing the ball very much. And then all of a sudden I was passing the ball when I shouldn't be passing the ball. So I said, well... What do you do, right? You can't have it all.
I mean, it looked to my amateur eye like you were accelerating into contact more. You were comfortable in it. You were just busting some tackles. And I imagine that's partly because you were healthy. I mean, it doesn't come down to that too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, massively. I think this is the first super season in since I first came back from England where I've actually played the whole year, with the exception, of the 2 games. But, last year it was round 6 I came back, and the year before that round 7. So, I actually got, or call it 3 weeks of preseason, and then actually rolled into some games. So, like the extended stint playing definitely helped, I think. So
900 minutes, actually.
Yeah. It must be the frustrating part, I suppose, is that you guys as a playing group would have felt your game going to a different level, because it did go to a different level this year. There was a different look and feel it. And there would have been times this year where you thought, this is great, we need to keep this going. And, of course, what's looming over the horizon as well. So a bittersweet sort of a year, I suppose?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I think for those of us that – cause we had sort of a lot of new guys come into the group. So you had 2 pretty distinct groups, the guys who were Rebels for a while and those that hadn't. And as with all things, new guys come in, they bring this enthusiasm, this optimism. And it probably didn't click straight away for us. I think round 1 was a real kick in the gut. So, it was a constant battle of sort of like managing expectations and managing enthusiasm. And look, we definitely didn't get what we wanted out of that. And there's a whole host of reasons for why. But, largely, look, at the end of the day, it was one better than we won one more game than we did last year. So, look, might be a defeatist attitude, but that's growth. So
yeah, it's a small win, for sure. Tell us now what this sort of pre-Wallaby period, I'll call it, is like. There's we know there's little training groups across the five cities. How are those programs being run? Are you all sort of self-managed, or are you coming together as a group? How are they actually working?
Yeah, so as soon as you're knocked out, so whichever team, or we can sort of the template is for all teams. So whenever the team's knocked out, you get a week of rest.
Yeah.
And then the following week you're into sort of like a satellite training camp. So I know the Waratahs and the Force guys are training in Sydney last week with the Wallaby staff, and then this week there's guys in Melbourne and Brisbane, and the guys in Sydney train on their own. So I've obviously had to move house, so I'm training on my own this week. And then I believe next week the Brumbies are in. So I'm not entirely sure what that looks like after this Saturday. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm just training by myself this week, and I'm gonna give it a shake, see if I can run out for the Wicks on the weekend if they'll let me. So
right,
we'll
there's an 8-9 combo exclusive. I don't think we've ever had one of them, Harry, before. That's good news. That's really good news.
It's not quite an exclusive yet. We'll see how we go. I'm gonna have to. To get out there. I got to get picked. They're going all right the week.
Yeah, true. Roll up training and see how you go. Certainly there are whispers that we'll actually might hear a squad later in the week. So I suppose by Saturday or Sunday you're probably rolling into the squad.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it would make sense, I guess, from where I sit now that all the teams are out. But look, at the same time they've got a plan, and it's way above my pay grade. So.
Yeah, it's true. You see what it looks like, and do you have a sense? Do you have a degree of confidence that a good number of Rebels teammates are going to be there?
Oh, look, I certainly hope so. I think there's some obvious ones who like I think everyone probably agrees deserve to be there, and then a couple of guys who had some awesome involvements this season. So like the Derby Lancasters and Big Davey F in the centres, and there's a couple of guys there in that category.
Filippo even,
well, I think Filippo's such an interesting one. Like he's never been a bad player at any point.
No.
And he was obviously out of favour and whatever. That's part of being a player. Coaches like different players for different reasons. So the cool thing about Filippo is, as I said, like he's never really been like he's never even really had like a real down stint of form. Like he just he fell out of favour in Queensland, and that happens. And he's come down to Melbourne, and he's the same player, man. Tough as nails, runs into contact, wants to carry the ball, wants to tackle. Just a really good guy. Like he's one of those sort of people you really want to play with. A lot of Marika Korobidi about him. So look, I think, look, if I was picking the team, which I'm not, he'd be right in there. So it was awesome to play with him this year.
Harry, you've always talked about this eternal quest of finding the perfect number 23, and Filippo Dangunu might just be it.
Yeah, it just seems like in today's Test rugby, versatility at the end, or even when sometimes a card is given and you suddenly the whole thing is roiled around. You've got to have that. It seems like you're also used a little bit like the patch it, fix it guy too. I mean, you've been able to play wing and fullback. You got an educated boot. When you are getting ready for test season, I mean, what do? Do you kind of just how do you know where you'll be used? Like, is it possible that you'll be playing fullback or wing?
Good question.
Well, you never quite know, and I think the real come to Jesus moment for me over the last sort of 5 or 6 years was when people ask, I'd always bang the drum. I'm versatile. That's an asset, and I can play multiple positions. And then when time came to actually be versatile, you're always a bit like, the ego kicks in, and it's a bit like, oh, hang on, I still want to play my first choice.
Yeah.
And the big learning is now it's like if you're going to bang the drum and say that versatility is a strength, well then when the time comes, you've got to be the guy, right? So, in terms of to answer your question, you never know. Always have a preference. I think everyone has a preference. But at the same time, like right now, for example, Righty's in a real purple patch of form. Like he's playing some awesome footy. So, the best thing for the team probably is to have him run around and keep doing what he's doing. So, let's tap into that versatility, hopefully.
Yeah. In that situation where the head-to-head has been has been described fairly weakly. I'd suggest. It's, and it's felt all year that you could probably flip a coin between the two of you, and the situation would be all right. When you're one of those in the head-to-head, how much are you keeping an eye on how Righty's playing, and how much are you trying to ignore what he's doing?
Oh, I don't think it's about ignoring. I don't think, as I said, like, he's flying at the moment, so it's actually really cool to watch. In terms of whether it impacts my stuff, no, not really. Yeah. I think, again, as you get older, you learn, like, you bring what you bring, and I can't bring anything else. Like, all I can bring to the table is what I got, and unfortunately, I don't have some of the power and the speed that Righty's got. Like, he's a freak athlete, right? So, the challenge for me is to make sure what I do bring is quality. So, you always hear everyone banging the drum about, everyone's got a preference, and everyone, so-and-so should be this, and so-and-so shit, and Kellaway shit, and he's not fast, and he's not athletic, and get him out. And I'm sitting there going, far out, this guy's reading my mind. He knows everything I'm saying about himself. Far out. But yeah, look, as I said, the challenge is to bring what I can bring and do it really well, and to do it consistently, more importantly. And I think, largely I've been pretty happy with my consistency over the last 2 or 3 years. Like, I feel like at super level and at test level, I've been consistent enough to sort of keep turning up. So, the challenge is always to keep doing it.
This is kind of a subculture debate about you, and if you're looking for some more negative feedback, is the criticism is that you're not fully committed to being ginger. And so the raging debate in Australia is: Are you better? Are you the best ginger back? Are you better than Tane Edmed? Because he's full ginger. There's no doubt about it when he comes on.
There's no escaping it.
He is a real ginger. He's I'm to quote South Park, I'm a bit more of a day walker. But look, hey, it's like we don't discriminate. We're all part of the tribe, right? So if one of us is doing well, we're all doing well.
Yeah, fair. Gingers of the world unite. My daughter will be loving this when I'll have to point it out, but she'll love this sort of conversation.
Very good.
Do you arrive into camp with highlights of you playing left wing, right wing, fullback, 13? Here, Joe, here's a selection of clips for you, or?
Yeah, I might have to at this point. I think I've even got some footage of me on the side of a scrum when there's a yellow card or something like that. So I'll have to. I'll have to at this point. I think I'll do anything to get a game, mate. So I might have to.
Yeah, fair. Things you've got to do in these desperate moments. I mentioned at the top the sometimes you wonder about Australian rugby. Do you how much attention do you pay to the headlines that have been floating around for the last couple of days? Does it, as a player, do you see some of that stuff and just go, like, come on, let's actually think about what we're doing here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's hard not to at this point. I think it's sort of, the game's probably at its lowest point, I think, and scary, it's sad, but look, at the same time, it's an opportunity, I think. I actually just bumped into somebody this morning who was telling me about this future fund they've got going on at Rugby Australia, and that's exciting, right? Like, there's some thought there, and there's a really cool plan at the very least. So, look, I mean, it's tough. It is tough. We were talking about it the other day. Like, everywhere you turn, there seems to be something bad about rugby, and then, instead of everyone being really, really happy for Carter to go and test himself in the NRL, it's, let's shit can rugby again. So it's such a funny one. I think, as I said, people are always gonna want to heap shit, and in my experience, in this country more than any other. But hey, excuse my language, but fuck them. Let's just get on with it. And
So Kels, I've studied a bit of like why we even have professional sports in the first place. It all came in northern UK. It's like Liverpool and Manchester, and these towns were actually using sport as another arm almost to have rivalries. It was born of rivalries. And the closer you were, the more bitter the rivalry was. Like derbies from inside London, derbies between two Liverpool teams. And I've always thought, just taking a step back from the Australian paradigm or wherever we need to be, it's like that's where it's all at. Dynastic rivalries, friendly but also unfriendly, and kind of spicy stuff. And I always think that rugby in Super Rugby is almost too polite. That it's almost like it's almost like there's not enough banter. It's almost like what's good for Australia. Like instead of like just embracing whatever self-interest is going on and saying, can we make that a spectacle and just say it's okay for us to be, doing that? And maybe you have to have 2 teams in Sydney and 3 teams. Maybe you have to have enough teams in one little area or 2 areas where there's that spicy rivalry. Or do you think we just keep doing what we're doing? Like, have you thought about the macro issues on this thing, or what?
Oh yeah, always after about 6 beers, this comes up. Yeah, I mean, you're always thinking about that sort of stuff, and I think, look, I'm firmly in the camp of let's just have more teams. Let's, everyone says the talent's too diluted. Let's dilute it more, and that's how you fix that problem. You look at as far as I'm concerned, you look at the NRL and the AFL, tapping into arguably a smaller market. They can't go and pick guys from overseas. I mean, the NRL can go to England and pick from about 0.5% of the population, and to New Zealand as well. So it's not, I mean, they've got like small pools to pick from, but really they're picking from Australia, and they're managing to have superstars coming out all the time. So the question has to be asked, is there an argument for just having a really dilute pool of what we would all consider talent? And then all of a sudden, maybe we see some good guys become great and great guys become, to steal an NRL term, immortals, because your really great players will look really awesome if the talent pool's even more diluted. So, maybe that's the way to go. So I'm firmly in that camp, and I think, I understand there's heaps of stuff that goes with that. How do you fund that sort of stuff? Right. Obviously we don't have the cash to even fund 5 teams at the moment. So yes. How do you fund 8? But I think, eventually further down the track, I'd like to see rugby go smaller so that it can go bigger. So instead of having a team from New South Wales, why not just Sydney? Or why not even just Eastern Sydney or Western Sydney? And it makes it easier to support. Like I've just come from Melbourne and I lived in Richmond. So I supported Richmond in the AFL because that's just what you do if you live in Richmond.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're kind of like a pseudo AFL fan because just because of where you live, whereas we just don't get that with rugby. Like people in New South Wales don't go, I'll go for the Waratahs because I live in New South Wales. Do you know what I mean? That's probably poorly.
Yeah. And also when you look at, I mean, I was actually in Sydney and I went to a game with the Easts, and it was easy to draw a crowd. I understand in Queensland Brothers is the same thing. There's an organic idea of locality. My town, my village, my side, my suburb against yours. And it's almost like I know the guys well enough to it's spicy. I also wonder in Australian rugby, I look across and I see there's 4 or 5 really good locks that are Australian playing across the world right now that are some of the best locks in the world. And then I always wonder, like, but was it inevitable? Like, was Manny Miafu, like, would he have become that if he stayed or not? And so in some ways you kind of do need more teams because you need someone who's a late bloomer. And maybe he doesn't catch on immediately. You have Ram, Angus Scott-Young, you've got Tuipulotu, you've got Dempsey's pulling up trees.
Jack Dempsey,
for Glasgow. And so you wonder, like, maybe you just need enough places to play and get minutes.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely like a big chunk of the pie in terms of solving the problem. I think the other enormous chunk that I mentioned before is cash. Like, the fact that the game is so healthy in other parts of the world is awesome, but so detrimental to us here because, like we're asking guys like, we don't have to, Samu Karevis and these guys to forfeit, 7 figures to come home and just the times have changed. Like, the gold jersey is no longer part of the negotiation. Like it just unfortunately isn't when people are, I know some guys who are supporting an entire family, we're talking like 7 people on their salary. So to ask them to then forfeit even $1, is not right. So, we've got sort of two big issues there I think we've got to solve, but you're right. Like there is, I'm close with Demo and he's flying at the moment, loves it. And probably the other part's worth mentioning is some guys need a little change of scenery to really kick them into gear. Like I know that was the case for me. And
I was going to say that, yeah.
So it probably is part of that is some of those guys might not have, or in fact, probably wouldn't have become what they are if they'd stayed. And what they actually needed was to get out and find themselves. And, that's a cool thing as well. It's something we can offer that no other game can. And the challenge for us is to offer that in the right amount, and then offer
Yeah.
the domestic dream in the other. So again, like way above my pay grade, and geez, I'm happy about it because it's a big issue and tough one to solve.
It's a massive issue. I often think, what you played enough NRC to know that was a pretty good level of competition. It was producing players, but I go further back than that. I think about what might have happened if the Australian Rugby Championship in 2007 was allowed to keep going. Like, that competition would be 15 years old now, and who knows the impact it might have had. It's firmly in the very hard basket. Maybe not the too hard basket, but it's firmly in the very hard basket. And the day we solve that problem will be a good day for Australian rugby, I can imagine.
To be honest, I could be in a wheelchair when they solve that problem. It's a tough one.
Right.
Yeah. No,
the other thing people always talk about now, Kels, is about speeding up the game and the spectacle idea, making it more attractive. And it's interesting to me because for everything you do one way, it kind of messes up something else. And it's almost like a whack-a-mole thing. I've never understood this idea of like
great description
of like fatigue. People were praising fatigue. I watched a lot of games. I played a lot of games where we were all fatigued, and it kind of was a terrible spectacle because at some point when you have tired guys chasing around, it doesn't look as sexy as you want it to be. My big thing is the quickest one. I like easy fixes, the shot clock. Why are we taking so long for kicks where now everyone knows to milk it? I saw a game this weekend where literally the Glasgow kicker wouldn't even put the tee down, and he just stood there looking, and the crowd was going crazy, and he was using the full amount. That's not really what we wanted out of this, is it?
No, I've got a massive soft spot for goal kickers though, because the first bloke to get crucified when you lose by 1 point or 2 points is the goal kicker. So if that's going to be, it's got to be give and take, and I think always we want to encourage guys to perform at their best. But I think you're right. Like, we don't want guys taking the piss. They've got to find a middle ground.
It's crazy.
And hey, look, to be honest, I actually think we're sort of on the right track there, because it's this year more than any other year I've heard the refs saying, "Hurry up! Like, come on, we've got to get this done." So I think we're on the right track there. And then even in terms of just broadly speaking, changing the rules, sort of in terms of wholesale changes like the NRL kind of do and do a really good job of, to be fair to them. I don't know that would work for our game. What I'd like to see is that we make more of the stoppages. So what can we put in that space coverage-wise?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a perfect
Can
time
we get
to
more replays?
Clips,
Yeah. And we need to start thinking about it, like the shot clock. You're seeing inside the stadium. You're seeing it at the ground. And although I noticed that it's at some grounds in Australia and not at others, yet we don't have it as part of the broadcast. We're not seeing a clock on the screen. Whereas you watch a bit of the URC or the Premiership as well, you can see the clock start. As soon as the try is awarded, you can see the clock comes up and it literally says time to goal, counting down from 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And even more than that, like, you've got guys wearing GPS that's spitting out like really high quality data.
Yeah.
Let's look at that. Let's show people that. Let's look at, I don't know, gambling, anything. Let's just put some stuff in there. Like it's the NFL managed to make 4 hours of the same stuff really interesting. And there's a lot of stoppages in there. Why
out of 4 15-minute quarters?
And
exactly right. So we should probably take a bit out of that.
Yeah, it's building tension. It's building drama. So, like, say in soccer and football, and you have a free kick, there's a lot of time sometimes building up to that. But the commentators immediately pivot to which way they're going to go, around the wall, under the wall. There's like percentages, and they have tendencies. And then so you don't care. Like, okay, we just wasted a minute, but it's fun.
We've heard.
I agree.
Yeah.
Was it Sam Lana that said it to us, Harry, that what you don't hear in a football game is commentators talking about dead time? You certainly don't. You watch the NFL game, you do not hear a commentator saying, "We have literally filled 3 hours of space."
Yeah, exactly right. And that isn't that like such a cool challenge for our game? Hang on, I got a friendly lorikeet here. Won't leave me alone. Yeah, look at this.
Oh wow!
Oh, that's genuinely a friendly lorikeet.
Right.
It's going to butt my head off. I've got a bird phobia, so if I jump up here in a second, I'll be. Excuse me.
Well, birds are our ancient enemy, Kel. So be careful.
Oh, they're horrible things. I'm just going to scare this fella off here. Get out of here. Rag off.
Oh, I can honestly say we've never had to pause a podcast.
Get a bird injury, Kels. Do not.
No. Do not.
No, they're gone. Mate,
most exotic rugby injury ever.
Mate,
can you imagine the
dog? I went and bought a dog to scare off the pigeons in the cafes, and the fat little thing is asleep on the floor here next to me, and there's birds everywhere. Horrible.
I can recommend the bird scaring capacities of Jack Russell's, mate. We've got no birds in our backyard now.
As I was saying, I think the challenge for us is as a game is we're at this sort of tipping point where what we can offer is something that we've never had in terms of insight. Data.
Yes.
It's like we're in the world of data, and all this stuff is like at our fingertips. And the challenge is how do we present it most attractively? And look, that's not my challenge. My challenge is to supply the data. But at the same time, like, imagine if we could really spruce some of that stuff up, and then add into that. Can you bet on it? I don't know, maybe. And let's start to, instead of trying to stop the dead time, let's try and fill it with something even more interesting.
Let's enhance it.
The scrums will. The NBA is doing that. At every juncture, there's you can place a bet on something. And
scrums will always take a long time because they're incredibly complex and difficult. Kicking, do we want guys to rush the kick so much that they have, diminished chance of actually kicking the goal? Like, we want them to have every chance to get it. So,
Well, my idea there, Kels, would be that you get more points if you do it really quickly. So if you kick it in the first... If you drop goal in the first 10 seconds, it's worth 4 points.
Yeah. If you can land a penalty goal 10 meters in from touch, 45 meters back by a drop kick, it's worth 5.
If you can convince the rugby overlords in the Northern Hemisphere, the rich white males, to fix that for us, and if you can convince them to do that, I will buy you whatever you want.
Hey, here's a question I had. Where were you on the depth chart of goal kicking, like for Wallabies in the World Cup? Like, were you on that list? Were you number 3?
Mate, I don't know where I was on the list. I mean, I certainly,
practiced contingency plans. Like if this one goes down.
Oh,
where were you on there?
How far down the sheet were you for the kicking competition?
Mate, I was actually hitting them. I was hitting them pretty well at the World Cup. Actually, I was. Nearly got a call up on for Saturday night in Wellington, but look, I don't know how far down the list I was. I certainly am trying to practice more, but look, I was obviously far enough down the list not to get picked. So it's maybe we leave it at that. All I know is I was hitting them sweet. So look, that's all you can do.
Good. There's a good break. That's a good break. I can remember you kicking in an NRC game, so I've seen it happen.
Yeah, no, I got a couple. I think I've had one Super Rugby. I think I'm 100% Super Rugby. I think I'm 1 from 1, and then
keep it like that. Then. Never kick again.
Never kick again. Yeah.
And then
I think
I had 2 or 3 at Mitre 10 Cup, and none in the Northern Hemisphere. But no, look, I actually did. I practiced quite a bit at the World Cup. Once I got sort of tapping the shoulder,
right?
And I was hitting them sweet. They just.
What's your ball flight? Are you the Christian Leilafano super draw or the
massive right to left?
Or the Noah fade.
No, I'm pretty straight, to be honest. At the moment, I don't know where it's come from, but at school I was very, very much right to left. But it's pretty straight.
The dreaded straight ball.
Good.
I think everyone's got a shank or 2 in them, but that's pretty straight.
Yeah.
The opposite of my golf game. Absolutely opposite of my golf game.
We should talk about this Super Rugby final this weekend, mate. Blues Chiefs in Auckland. Who do you like? I mean, 2 really good semi-finals. It needs to be said. Certainly the 2 best teams got through. Who do you like? What do you make of this contest?
Mate, good question. 2 good teams, 2 like completely different ways of playing in my opinion. Like, I know the Blues, when we played them, they sort of tried their hand at doing the sort of flashy stuff, and they weren't getting the pay they wanted, and then all of a sudden it was like something switched and their power game just like kicked in, and they just sort of like ran over the top of us, or in fact not sort of like, they actually just ran over the top of us. So on one hand, I think any team that's able to change on a dime like that and do it successfully is a good team, and actually the Hurricanes did it to us as well in Wellington, but it's hard to go past the way the Chiefs play. Like, they are awesome to watch. And to be honest, even when you're playing in those games and, you're watching blokes run around the ball in one hand and flick it over there and throw it out there and they score, you sort of sit there and scratch your head and go, fair enough. Like, if that's what you're going to do, then good on you. So look, I would like to see the Chiefs win, but at the same time, I don't really care because there's no Australian team. So
yeah, true. Who was the hardest of those two teams for you guys to play?
I was injured. I broke my ribs, so I didn't play against the Chiefs. And we actually had a good hit out against the Blues. I mean, they sort of lost Rico early, so it was a big attacking threat out of the game pretty early. And maybe we caught them on an off night or something. But that game felt like we were in it. Like we felt like we had a real chance to beat them. And to be honest, the hardest team we played this year was definitely the Hurricanes. Like when we played them in Palmerston North, they were just like unbelievably physical.
Pretty hot that night, yeah.
And then even again, we had them at sort of 7-6 with 5 minutes to go in the first half, and in the quarter, and again, like their game just changed, and they became like a real tough team to deal with. And honestly, I actually think the Hurricanes are the best team this year.
I think
if they'd made
they were
on points differential, on balance. It just ran into a buzzsaw. I mean, I couldn't the two of the games this weekend were blitz. They were just like teams came out and blitzed you, and then
that's the Chiefs,
you could
right?
just see Perenara going what's going on, and they had to dig their way back, and it's so hard to. But you go down that many points, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. No, and I think on that note, exactly, I think the Chiefs will have it. Like if you're knocking off the Hurricanes, by that margin and that comfortably, I think you're in a good spot, and that's pretty important momentum to carry in. The Brumbies are no easy beats for the Blues, but I think that Hurricanes Chiefs game will have prepared them better.
Well, it's very interesting though. Like you look at the one similarity I find with those two teams, Blues and Chiefs, is the loose trios are amazing. Like if they're all healthy and they're running out, I'm not sure if Dalton Papali'i is, but that 3 versus 3 Finau, Jacobson playing sort of rugby of his life. And young fella sits the other. That's a really good matchup with Ione and Satutu. But I think the other the game managers are really different. The Chiefs are playing really wide. They get to second, third receiver all the time, and the Blues are just saying when they come up this channel, and we're just gonna bulldozer you. And I'm really cannot wait to watch this match because I love the fact that rugby can be two really good teams playing so differently,
completely different,
and they're not very far apart. I mean, they literally across the road from each other. So
well, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Like as you said, like Mackenzie and Plummer are like chalk and cheese at the moment.
Yeah.
Plummer's like the ultimate director, and Mackenzie's the guy like in there at the coalface doing all the playmaking. So it's and both doing a fantastic job in their own right. So look, it's going to be a cracking game, and if I had to bet my money, which I'm not allowed to, I'd be on the Chiefs 1-12.
I think bet responsibly, please, people. I think the Chiefs would be the one team the Blues would not have wanted to play in the final.
Agree. It's a hard style to deal with. You got Nana Saturo, Stevenson, and Narawa running around there doing their thing. Like if those guys get a little bit of wind in their sail, then good night. Like hard to deal with. And also like Mackenzie is when he's on. Again, like hard to deal with.
He's so unflappable too, and he looks like he's about to get killed at every moment. And he doesn't. He must be made of rubber or something.
Yeah. I'll have whatever he's having.
Tough boy.
Doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, no doubt. Interestingly, it feels actually to me like he has maybe never played with more structure. Like there's a definite way to the way he's playing now, to even compared to maybe 2 years ago. Never mind 5, but. There's still that instant flick of, all right, now we're just going to play.
He's so quick to the ball too, like on loose balls. I watched him he just accelerates. He has no fear of contact. I thought interesting the way, to your point, Brett, the counterattack, it's actually structured. It's a structured counterattack.
Yeah. It's like they know that if they get loose ball, their best way of the best way of creating a line break is to be here or here or here. That they've got the channels they want to get into.
Yeah, you saw that with Satiti to Jacobson to Ratama. It was like they literally filled lanes, and the Canes there's no one to tackle. It was just the ball kept moving.
Yeah. It's tough. What price is home ground advantage in a game like this? It feels like it's probably worth 10 or 12 points. It could be that much.
Yeah. I think generally speaking, you're right. But look, as you said, like Hamilton and Auckland and Nave, like it's like driving up the road. You know, like
yeah, it's true.
I just wonder whether, and you've got how many All Blacks in the
and plenty of All Blacks. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Eden Park is home for those guys. So you know, like I wonder whether it actually will be an advantage. I reckon, honestly, if there was one field that would have no advantage for an All Kiwi final, probably was going to be Eden Park.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a good point.
Yeah,
it's actually a good point. It's the non-home advantage.
Yeah, it's like playing. It's like the Premiership rugby final being at Twickenham, right? Like it's
yeah, right. It's interesting. It's really interesting. It will be a really interesting game. I'm really looking forward to it, just to see how it does play out. The clash of styles will be interesting, and then I suppose the obvious lessons that we can pick up as Australian teams, Kelsey. Like, you know, is there something that you can see that, you know, what could we do that? Is there any reason why we can't do that? So that's always the interesting thing in games like this.
Yeah, no, massively. And I think, look, to be honest, as I said, the way in our experience as Rebels this year, but I'm sure other guys, the way the Blues and the Hurricanes particularly like flicked a switch and changed their game mid-game. You know, there's no coach telling them to do that. That's a leader's and a playmaker's choice to say, hey, this isn't working. We're going to try this. And probably something, you know, you look at our World Cup experience, we just didn't have that. You know, like we couldn't manage the game, couldn't flick the switch. So when we needed to change, we had nothing to lean on. So, and there's heaps of reasons why that is. That's not me pointing the finger at playmakers and game managers. But if there's anything, in my opinion, if there's anything we can take from the season we've just had, it's probably that. And how we get to that point, I don't know. I hope Joe Schmidt brings a bit of insight as a Kiwi and a guy who's worked in those environments. I hope he's able to sort of shed some light on that. And, you know, and then it's on the players, right? Then it's on the leaders and the playmakers to get together and work it out.
Yeah. Did you guys ever hear Nick Faldo talk about the difference between, you know, a really good amateur golfer and then the guys who make it for a living? Is that the pros can fix their game in the middle of the round when it's going wrong? Like they can make the adjustment maybe in the middle of the swing. And I always thought that the big difference between Kiwi and Aussie teams, especially lately, it's not physicality at all. It's not speed. It's not talent. It's their ability to make adjustments inside the game and feed off whatever's going on. They just seem like that half second quicker.
Yeah, no, 100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree. And honestly, that's probably a consequence of just having played more rugby. So how do we expedite that process for guys? Like we're probably not getting enough rugby this year. You know, like in this window.
No question.
You're preaching to Brad here. He loves this. More minutes.
No question here at all.
Yeah. No, it's like
no question here at all.
It's become like it's like taboo. You know, if you're not playing Super Rugby, any other comp, you're just more likely to get injured for some reason. You know.
Did you see Bowden Barrett playing this weekend for Coastal in Taranaki?
I didn't.
Did he? Did
he play a club game?
They hit it. There was no press. There was on the team sheet. No, he showed up and he was on the bench, and he played second half. They won by 52-10. It was because of Bodie, actually.
Oh, wow.
But he had so much fun. He hadn't played for like 12 years. I think he was 18 years old when he played there.
Can you send me that? Wherever that's published, I'm going to need that as like a precedent for me trying to get a game this week.
I'll send you the link. It's brilliant.
Not that he and I are in even close to the same class of player, but just the principle.
Oh, wow. I mean, he would have been played for Taranaki for a decade. So,
it was such a good team. You guys should look at the scenes. And it's just so funny because the kids just flock on there, and it was like a sensation. And I just love that. I love about rugby.
That's great.
No, 100%.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Mates, look, it's been great. It's been great to catch up. We knew it would be. Thanks so much for giving us some time in between plumbing jobs. You've got out of unpacking boxes for an hour.
Yeah.
You've avoided being killed by birds. So I feel like we've gone on a whole roller coaster with you.
Birds. Yeah, birds, mate.
I'm with you. Birds are my enemy, man. I get the mean eyes.
Putrid little feet. Get them out of here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get a new dog as well because she didn't do her job. So
your dog is docile. Your dog is part of a union.
You've got some big job. You've got some big jobs this week, no doubt. All the best for squad announcements later in the week. As I say, we're pretty confident you'll be there. Look forward to catching up again at some point in the international season. I'm sure we will.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Girls.
No worries at all.
Brett, do you want him to stay on just for the upload thing?
This is the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast with Brett McKay and Harry Jones, and that was wonderful, mate, to get Andrew Kellaway on the 8-9. That was fantastic. Last year it was technology failure. This year we nearly had him killed by wildlife.
The Bachelor's all grown up now. I like him
because I was so proud of him.
Kell's just says it. He's like a candid guy. Yeah. I think he's kind of he's what I always thought about Australian rugby players, like really clever. Like he worked stuff out. He didn't have to be the quickest or the highest jumping guy, but really clever.
Yeah,
he can find a way to beat you.
Yeah, he's a thinking player nowadays. Yeah. Very, very much so. Very much so. Let's head around the grounds, touch on the major talking points from the weekend of the various competitions, and we've sort of touched on the Super Rugby semis. I think is there anything we didn't cover off there that we need to? I sort of feel like we got there in the end.
I just think the imperative of not getting behind too much quickly.
Yeah,
you just cannot start slow in these semis.
No, that's it. And like I think I said either on the socials or in our chat group, I can't remember. It's all fine and good to be, one of the more efficient tackling teams in the competition, or be the team that makes the most tackles as the Brumbies are. But when you are up against the team that gets over the gain line more than any other team, that's a problem, because they're going to get past you at some point, whether you like it or not.
It's like, so my tennis coach says all the time, in warm-ups, when you have your opponent, you don't know him, and you start to just hit, and you realize that he will make mistakes more than you. You know how to win the game. You just keep hitting the ball in. Like, you don't even have to hit a winner anymore. I thought the Blues just kind of like, okay, so we're going to play this. You're going to let us be in your red zone for a while? Okay.
Yep. Okay. And, look, their first try come after 12 phases. The second or third try come after 10, like 10 plus. So, that's how they do it. We will discuss the final, certainly, later this week in Games of the Week. So make sure you are suitably equipped for when that drops later in the week. Two semi-finals of the United Rugby Championship, and I couldn't quite believe these results. I really couldn't. The Bulls 25 beat Leinster 20 at Loftus on Saturday in Pretoria, and then on Sunday, a real boil over, it's got to be said. Munster 10 lost to the Glasgow Warriors 17 at Tormund Park in Limerick.
Both really good games. Really
good. Again, I haven't watched the full games, but there was even the highlight clips that I was watching. There was a real ebb and flow to it.
There was. It was very interesting for Leinster fans, of course. Wait, are you frozen? Wait, you're back. Okay, sorry. For Leinster fans, they were comfortably outplayed at 10 by Goosen. Johan Goosen totally outplayed.
Yes.
Ross Byrne, and I think also the loose trios. Again, the loose trios. You would think Caelan Doris, Josh van der Fleer, and Baird would maybe have the wood, but they didn't. They lost to the Marco van Staden,
and even Munster.
Yeah.
Munster's back row is a quality outfit, and they just didn't have it against the Warriors.
Rory Darge was better. I mean, like they ruled the breakdown. Other thing that was interesting in the Bulls game was there was so many kicks, right? There were 40 kicks by the Bulls and 37. Now that's not how the Bulls have been playing this whole season.
That feels low for the Bulls.
Hiding, and they were doing no, they've been the highest offloading team, super attack, keep the ball in play, 20 kicks a game max, and then they suddenly go 40. And what it was they said, they weren't really sure Byrne could do it, and also James Lowe cannot resist trying to outkick you. Yeah. And the thing is, I'm sorry, James Lowe, but Goosen can kick it farther than you.
Yes.
He's actually
he knows
run the ball, yeah.
And he certainly knows the benefits of hang time at altitude.
Yeah.
So he's just going to kick smarter. Yeah.
And what Jake said was, with all the rules about doing scrums, now we know we just kick the ball dead because we don't care. Come back for a scrum, great. We made a scrum. So and so they said that just kick it dead and make them kick out of their 22 or their touch, goal and touch. And the other thing was, he said over and over, Jake White said to his players, be brave. And there were these little moments in time where the Bulls players just went for a little bit more, and the Leinster would almost look like they were worried they would lose. I feel like the pressure on Leinster now with a series each year of falling at semi-final.
Yes.
It's stacking up on them. There's a league that does not look very happy.
Yes. And suddenly I think there was a realization of, oh, that's right, we don't have Sexton at 10 anymore, do we?
He would have been good in that game. I think that would have been the difference. He could have kept them back in there and kind of directed them. They didn't adapt very well. And in the end, the Bulls ran away, I think, a deserved winner. Glasgow was more like a gutty, like Glasgow just refused to lose. And I thought it was really
that's a great way of putting it. Yeah. They just rolled the sleeves up, didn't they? They just thought, all right, we're just going to get this job done. Doesn't matter how it looks. We're just going to roll the sleeves up and get it done. And so it will be fascinating how that transfers to Loftus for the final on Saturday.
It's a hell of a reward, right?
The Bulls are going to start. The Bulls are going to start as short price favourites. Yeah. But Glasgow will go, all right, whatever. Let's just get on with it.
I like the guy in Glasgow who was interviewed. I forgot who it was, and he said, I think it was Tupoloto. He said, "I'm kind of looking forward to being warm." He goes, even though it's summer here in Scotland. He's like banking on it being warmer.
It's still colder. It's still colder than winter in Pretoria. Oh, work that out. The top 14 qualifying finals as well. Saw a couple of interesting results there. Toulon lost to La Rochelle, 34-29. I think that surprised everyone. That was fourth against fifth. Bordeaux beat Racing 92 in the end, 31-17, which
they look good. Bordeaux is on my Harry index, as everyone knows.
Yes, they are rising.
5 or 6. I think they're
rising.
Underrated. Yeah.
So they'll play Stade Francais on Saturday in the second semi-final. Toulouse will play La Rochelle on Friday in the first. And then in the promotion relegation game in France as well, Grenoble went down 20-18 to Montpellier on Sunday. So Montpellier will stay up. 77th minute penalty to Louis Carbonell secured the win, and they stay up. And that's a kick that's worth $10 million.
And there's that undertone of what Montpellier is all about.
Yes, and where's that $10 million going to go? Right. Who knows?
What I also didn't discuss with you, sorry, before we leave refereeing and these games, is your game, the Brumbies. The referee said, I think he decided and didn't tell anyone that any knock-on was no longer. There were no knock-ons. But it was actually for both sides. And I think it was really interesting. I posed a question on Twitter. So if that is suspended, what should you do?
Yes, I saw.
People had a lot of interesting, because it looked like it didn't matter anymore. Knock-ons were okay.
Yeah, so, there was. I did have to laugh at the commentary coming out of Australia saying, "Mate, you've just invented AFL."
It was wild for a while. Yeah, I go, this is crazy. Yeah.
It was mad. Yeah, look, I was going to try my best not to bring all that up, but anyway,
I think it was even-handed. It just that you guys knocked it on. I mean, they knocked it on more.
They knocked it on more in the same phase. But anyway, Major League Rugby round 16 saw Houston are now 11 points clear of Seattle in the Western Conference after a 28-25 win on Saturday. Old Glory beat Dallas Jackals 36-34 in Arlington as well. There's 2 rounds remaining there in Blur.
It's hard to pronounce.
It is.
Time.
Doesn't quite work as well as Irk, does it? But don't miss our end of week show games where we go through all the comps all around the world, or what's left of them nowadays. And we will pull out the matches that we think you should watch this weekend. It's just another reason for you to like, follow, subscribe, and make sure you do not miss that when it drops. Right. Short news. Some news of the last 7 days, mate, to wrap all this up, and some news from early last week. Noah Lolosio re-signed with the Brumbies and Rugby Australia for another year, which is great, and would have been nice for him to mention that when I was talking to him on Saturday night for my Rugby Pass profile last week. Never even come up. But that's really good news. It's interesting to me that it's only 1 year, and I've got a couple of thoughts on this, but I can't help but think that it might have been longer had they have known that the next day Carter Gordon would announce that he's switched to rugby league with the Gold Coast Titans for the next 2 years. I wonder.
So many weird subplots there.
Yeah, there is. And look, I think that speaks to Carter Gordon's current state of mind around the Rebels and what rugby has done to him as a person. And
multiple factors there, not just one.
Yeah, it certainly speaks of a desire to get back to Queensland. And I'm quite sure that right at this point in time, he probably didn't fancy being the one in the crosshairs in the Waratahs number 10, which, you couldn't really blame him if that was the case. 7 Springboks were named in the ERC team of the season. 2 2023 Rugby World Cup winners made the Elite 15. The Bulls had 6 players selected by media. And interestingly, I didn't know this about the ERC team of the year. You had to have played 9 matches to be eligible, which I like that. I don't mind that at all. So the team was from fullback, Warwick Galas from the Stormers, Jordan Lama from Leinster on the right wing, Sione Tuipulotu and Alex Nankiville at centres, Kurtley Aronsa on the left, Jack Crowley's the fly half, John Cooney from Ulster, the 9, Cameron Hanacom from the Bulls at 8, Elric Lowe, Jamie Ritchie, the flankers, Rua Nohi, Tug Byrne, the locks, Wilco Lowe, Acha van der Merwe, and friend of the pod, Oxenche up front. Okay, very happy for the Ox.
Yeah.
Very happy for the Ox.
Like that
good
that
team.
Name, the one name in there that's probably a little bit surprising that some people haven't watched much of it is Nankiville. Nankiville has had an amazing season up there. I mean, I'm
not so surprised.
He's one of the darlings. I know, but he always seemed like in New Zealand he couldn't really ever catch on. People just kind of underrated him a little bit.
He and Anton Leonard-Brown had a 12-13 combination for the Chiefs that I would just describe as being Toyota-like in its dependency.
Yeah,
right. Like it was just every week they would just do the job. And
he's a good player, man.
He's a good player. He's a consistent player. So I like.
He got caught on the weekend, so that wasn't.
He
a happy end.
That didn't look good either. Didn't look good. Final thoughts on episode 19.
I thought it was educational, academic, important, and anyone who's into Australian rugby has to listen to this because Kellaway is the man.
Yeah, no, there's something in this for all of us. I'm quite sure. But do check the show notes for links to the 8-9 combo on Twitter and YouTube, where you'll find full video versions of the podcast every week and games of the week as well. So give us a like, follow, subscribe, and interact with the pod directly, and rate and share, and send us a review if you can, like Smithers Cricket from Great Britain did a couple of weeks ago, who said, "The 8-9 combo is one of 2 rugby podcasts I simply won't miss. The quality of guest is excellent and the depth of discussion is unique. It's interesting, entertaining, and crucially avoids the inane banter sometimes engaged by other rugger buggers. Give it a shot."
Nice.
I like that. That's a good review.
Good review, yeah.
Good review. 100%. Keeping up our 5-star. Keeping up our 5-star average too, which is great. Harry and I are in the socials in our usual places, at Harry Baldy Jones and at BMC Sport, and you'll find Harry's written work on the Roar a couple of times a month, and my weekly Australian columns on Rugby Pass as well. What are you writing about this week? Quickly.
What did we actually learn about the season from an Australian perspective? Like really learn?
I've done a bit of a post-mortem on the Brumbies. Where they're at, what they've learned, what they haven't quite learned from the last couple of years. But this is the 8-9 combo, the shot side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed, coming from the podcast double act you already had. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones, and we will be back in your ears in a few days' time with Games of the Week.
Come fly with us. That was a bird reference. Sorry.
Come unpack with us.
I'm so glad we had a bird on.